I'm Nolan Beilstein, and welcome to Gen Z in Manufacturing. In the debut episode, I spoke to Seyi Oluwashina, a 25-year-old employee of Siemens, who discussed what drew him to his company, the mindset of Gen Z-ers in manufacturing, and how manufacturers can attract more young workers. In this episode, I welcome Sevann Bignon, a 23-year-old process improvement specialist at DeAngelo Marine Exhaust in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Bignon admits joining a manufacturing firm was not on his radar as he studied management and business law at the University of Miami. But after a college mentor told him about a manufacturer that was looking to build a culture that utilized process improvement strategies, Bignon found himself working for a marine metals fabricator, where he spends most of his time on the production floor trying to increase capacity and streamline the company's process. According to Bignon, the majority of DeAngelo's employees are 40 to 60 years old, with the exception of a handful under 30, and he said it can be interesting seeing how the different generations interact. Can you give me a little background of little explanation of your background in manufacturing?
So I went to the University of Miami and studied management basically, and found a mentor there who teaches process improvement, specifically in Demings and Six Sigma. And to be honest, I didn't really have any manufacturing experience or knowledge of manufacturing. Didn't even think I was going to join a manufacturing firm, but my mentor explained to me about an opportunity at DeAngelo Marine Exhaust, and manufacturing has a lot to do with process improvement. So it kind of interested me. I was a big fan of Six Sigma, big fan of Demings, and he told me that there was an opportunity at a manufacturing firm, and I was all aboard.
What were you looking for in a job out of college, and then what about DeAngelo stood out?
He explained to me that DeAngelo was really trying to change their culture from a traditional company to a professional company. And they were trying to build a Demings-based Six Sigma culture. And I was all on board because that's basically what I had studied in college, and I wanted to, practice what I learned.
And then what are your responsibilities as a process improvement specialist?
We were lacking in terms of having data. So I started on really trying to capture data and standardize processes. And now I'm at the point where I'm trying to improve the processes. For example, implementing a scanning system. One of the big problems we have at DeAngelo Marine Exhaust is that we couldn't find data, so we couldn't really. Six Sigma is very data oriented, and a lot of decisions were based on opinions and not really having a knowledge of what was actually going on. So that's what I kind of started on, and now I'm focused on kind of building standards so that everybody does it the same way. We work in a very custom field. Every exhaust is different. So that's what I'm focused on.
What kind of differences stand out in regards to how the different generations at your work carry out their duties?
Well, I feel like the older generation is so used to doing it in a specific way. They've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years. So they're very used to the way they do it, and they're more resistant to change compared to the younger generation. I think the younger generation is always trying to find new ways to do things, new ways to improve, kind of working smarter, not harder type of thing. That's kind of the difference I see between the older and newer generation.
And when you see the older and younger generations interacting with each other on the job, how would you describe how that interaction takes place? Do they work well together? Is there contention often?
I think, sometimes there's tension because you have this younger generation that, tries to change things that the older generation's been doing for years. But I do see that the older generation still does show and try to teach the younger generation on how it's supposed to be done. And same way with the younger generation, the older generation, the younger generation kind of tries to show that, maybe using this technology is going to help out, or doing it this way will help out. So I do see tension sometimes, but mostly I do see both generations working well together.
What kind of methods does your company implement to try and get everyone, the younger and older workers on the same page, working towards the same goal?
Well, so the marine industry is kind of far behind in terms of technology and all of that types of stuff. So what we're trying to do is build processes and we bought, for example, a cobot, which is a automatic, a robot, a welding robot. And, at first, the older generation was kind of like, oh, what is this? But then eventually they realize that it helps their job a lot. So it's kind of, once again, that resistance to change that the older generation has. But then when they start to realize, maybe this kind of helps out, they're more open to it.
Have you or any of the other, you mentioned there are some other workers at your job under 30, have you or any of them ever experienced the generational discrimination at work?
To be honest, not too much. Everybody at DeAngelo Marine Exhaust is in for the improvements. We've had a lot of problems with capacity, a lot of problems with trying to find fabricators from the younger generation. And, I see from the older generation, they're really trying to help the younger generation succeed in this environment. But to be honest, we're having trouble even finding younger generation in manufacturing. There's not too many of us, and that's one of the problems I really see.
So what do you think manufacturers can do to attract that younger talent?
I think showing that manufacturing is a good option for a career. If you look at welders and fabricators, it's a trait that's dying. And for example, myself, I didn't really know about that trait, and I come here and I'm fascinated. It's almost like a work of art. And it's something that I think in the future, when you look at AI and that sort of stuff, it's a trait that's never going to go away, because you're always going to need welders. You're always going to need fabricators on the floor being hands-on. Even though we are still trying to find technology that helps with our capacity, that helps build these exhausts, you're always going to need the hands-on people. And I think that's what you need to try to explain to the younger generation, that manufacturing is a nice career to have.
I know you mentioned that this kind of job wasn't really on your radar. Do you have any other friends from university that have kind of followed in the same path as you?
Not really, to be honest. The reason I chose this place is really because of the process improvement and practicing what I learned for 4 years. And I think manufacturing, that the one thing I really love about manufacturing is you're consistently trying to improve. You're consistently trying to find a better product, a cheaper product for your customer.
Kind of back to the methods of communicating with the older generation, how do you find success in communicating with workers who are older than you?
Trying to talk to them and seeing where they come from, because an important part of the younger generation is to listen to the older generation. They're the ones that have the experience. They're the ones that have been doing this for a long time. So it's important for them to understand that we're listening to them and we're learning about what their opinions on the matter are, and just trying to give our own input to it. The younger generation really should look towards finding a job in manufacturing. There's so much opportunity with engineering, process improvement, data analytics. I think there's so much opportunity to grow in manufacturing, and specifically in the marine industry, it's so far behind. So when you find younger generations that are trying to improve and build that industry, I think it's a great opportunity for young people.
I'm Nolan Beilstein, and this is Gen Z in Manufacturing.